Who favors the undertaking of a new world order? Well, that's what I told you. Horus is the eye, that's the Antichrist, and behind him is the sunburst of the sun god Osiris. See the little owl right there? So that
right
is the
there. Yeah.
that is the owl of Minerva, or the owl of Athena. Today, the neocons, the Bilderbergers, the elite would call that the Bohemian Grove owl. Out in San Francisco, above San Francisco, where they go out there once a year and do their rituals, right under the big owl. Okay, so but if you go, there's a lot of symbols in here that probably don't have time to get into, but I do want to go speak about the Alpha Omega real quick. So you saw that Omega symbol over Washington's head. In other words, that tells me that we're probably the final empire before the last empire, right? Because remember, he started this under the cornerstone of a new beginning, right? Remember I told you he laid the cornerstone under Virgo? Virgo is the new beginning, and then over his head is the Omega symbol, Alpha and Omega. And 13 means precursor to conclusion, meaning this is the last empire, world empire, before the big empire, the Antichrist empire, okay? So if you flip it over, let's go to the back. So, or let's do, the pyramid. So this says in Novus Coptus, Novus Ordo Seclorum, meaning he favors our undertaking of a new world order. Well, who favors the undertaking of a new world order? Well, that's what I told you. Horus is the eye, that's the Antichrist, and behind him is the sunburst of the sun god Osiris. Also goes by Ra, right, in Egyptian mystery schools. And underneath him is the mystery school. That is the mystery school. The Pyramid of Giza was a school for initiation into the occult by the priests of Egypt, right? When they went in, they were a man. When they came out, they went from 6 to 7 to 13 and became a self-enlightened god, right? And that's why they called them pharaohs, okay? See, it's all making sense, And then you got underneath this Novus Ordo Seclorum. And by the way, 1776 at the bottom of the pyramid there, there was something else founded that was very important in 1776, was the Bavarian Illuminati. They were founded around the same time. And there were a lot of Illuminati, what they call luminous, enlightened ones, that came over here to help with the revolution of America. So we had Rosicrucians here. By the way, Francis Bacon was heavily indoctrinated into Rosicrucianism. He's the one that wrote New Atlantis, which was about America, the New Atlantis and the New World. And my book goes into that as well. But Francis Bacon and a lot of the writers of the Enlightenment influenced our founding fathers heavily, right? Like Rousseau from France, Voltaire, you had Locke, okay? These guys influenced Jefferson, Madison, Franklin, Franklin was a very interesting guy because he had his hand in everything, okay? He had his hand in everything. He was literally in France. He actually had a big part in the French Revolution, his ideas as well. And he was a master mason over in France and a master mason in Philadelphia. And he also partook in rituals in England under the Hellfire Club with Thomas Dashwood, Sir Dashwood. And those rituals are very demonic, what he did. It was a lot of debauchery, things like that. So these, again, and by the way, Franklin's parents were Puritans, okay? So there's a big jump there for Franklin to be doing all that when his parents were hardcore Puritans. But anyway, this is the pyramid, not only of the Illuminati, it's also the pyramid of Egypt in Giza, and it is the process of enlightenment showing for you right there. And that when that all-seeing eye lands down on the pyramid, that means the American experiment, which they don't call it that. They actually call it in Mason the great work of the ages. The great work of the ages. When that pyramid comes together, that means our guided one, our teacher, right? Our new Messiah, you call it Mashiach, right? When he shows up, that's when that pyramid becomes complete. Okay?
You know what's interesting? For Muslims, they believe that the Antichrist, which is called Dajjal, has one eye.
Yeah, I've heard that. And So if you come over here, this bird was supposed to be a phoenix, and this is according to William Barton. It's right there. You can go look it up. You see the 13 talons. I mean, in his talons, the 13 arrows, the 13 olive leaves and berries, the stars above him, which I told you is a hexagram. We went over that. But look below that, it says E pluribus unum. That's also on the penny, which means out of many one. We talked about that too, how they're creating all these different unions around the world right now. See, now a lot of people don't know that, like, for example, the African Union took a long time to build, just like the European Union, but it's done now. It's pretty much done. And the South American Union is pretty much done. So these are huge, powerful blocks of nations, right? They're no longer a nation. They are nation states inside of a union. And I believe from my research that these are the 10 unions of the final empire of the Antichrist. Okay, the 10 horns. Now, 3 horns defect. It says that, right? There'll be 7 horns and then a little horn, which is the Antichrist. This is in Revelation. But this bird, that empire, see how the wings were spread out? That was the empire I was telling you about. That bird is called an aquila in Rome. In Rome, it meant empire. By the way, Hitler also had the bird's wings spread out as well, right? So you can go back through history, and whenever a bird's wings are spread out, that represents the empire of America, right? What today they would call American imperialism would be the term you'd probably hear. In the days of the founding fathers, you'd be colonialism, right? So that's kind of what you're looking at there as far as the financial system and what's coming in the financial system. But I do want to say that once they go to this quantum banking, crypto, digital currency like CBDC, which means we no longer hold dollars, we're using central bank digital currency. That system will be inside of a basket of currencies called special drawing rights, SDR. SDR is based out of the Bank of International Settlements. That's like the central bank to all the other central banks. It's called the BIS. It's in Switzerland, called the Bank of International Settlements. So all these transactions through these central banks and these digital currencies will be a massive control grid. They will know all your purchases. They will know where you are real time as you're making those purchases. They'll actually be able to locate you where you are as you're making those purchases. Talking about Big Brother, it's a dream right there for Big Brother, right? Because they will be able to track you.
It's the surveillance. I mean, you look at Palantir, which is created by the Zionists that they already tested in Gaza, that's going to do a surveillance and attack you if it has to. And speaking of Switzerland, you know, there's a lot of things in Switzerland, from the United Nations, the WHO, and they meet there. So it sounds like also they have a lot of symbolism outside different buildings. They have the goddess in Hindu. They have many interesting stuff there. So I think Switzerland is something to really dive into one day.